Have you ever wondered why some ideas just catch fire and completely change the world while others fizzle out? Well, the birth of Christianity is one of history's most incredible examples. And you know, it really wasn't an accident. It wasn't just random timing or a lucky location. It was the result of a very specific convergence of historical forces, a perfect storm, if you will. So let's dive into the three key ingredients that made it all happen.
The earliest Christians for sure didn't think it was an accident. They were convinced that all of human history had been leading up to this exact moment. They even had a name for it, the fullness of time, the idea that the world was finally ready.
Okay, but what does that actually mean? What were the specific historical ingredients, the political, the religious, the intellectual currents that all came together to create this one-of-a-kind environment? That's what we're going to break down.
All right, our first ingredient is the world Christianity was actually born into. First century Palestine. Now, this was not some peaceful, quiet corner of the world. Oh no, it was a land just crackling with tension, with intense religious debate, political turmoil, and this powerful, powerful sense of expectation.
You see, for centuries, this whole region had been a battleground for one empire after another. I mean, look at this timeline. First, Alexander the Great sweeps through, bringing Greek culture, or Hellenism, with him. Then you have this heroic rebellion by the Maccabees that wins them independence for a little while. But by the time of Jesus, Rome is in charge. This constant cycle of being conquered and then fighting back created this deep sense of tension, this feeling that something big had to happen.
And all that turmoil wasn't just external. Internally, Jewish society was really divided, mainly between two big power players. On one side, you've got the Pharisees. They were the party of the regular people, really focused on how to apply God's law to everyday life. And on the other, the Sadducees, the wealthy, aristocratic elite, whose power was all tied up in the temple. And these guys disagreed on some pretty fundamental stuff, like the very idea of a resurrection.
But, and this is so important, despite all those arguments, two powerful beliefs pretty much united everyone. First, what we call ethical monotheism. This isn't just the idea that there's one God, it's that this one God actually demands that people treat each other fairly and justly. And second, eschatological hope. Now, that's a big phrase for a simple, really powerful idea, the belief that history was going somewhere, and that God himself would soon step in to rescue his people and make everything right.
Now, this whole context wasn't just stuck in Palestine. For centuries, Jewish communities had popped up all over the Roman Empire. We call this the diaspora. And these communities, all linked by their faith and tradition, created this incredible network, a ready-made highway for new ideas to spread like wildfire. And the diaspora produced something that turned out to be unbelievably useful for the future church, the Septuagint. See, a lot of Jews living outside Palestine didn't speak Hebrew anymore, so their scriptures got translated into Greek, which was the common language of the day. This meant that when early Christians wanted to explain their message to literally anyone, Jew or non-Jew, they had this respected, widely understood text ready to go. It was a total game changer.
Okay, let's move to ingredient number 2. We're going to zoom out from Palestine and look at the massive political machine that was running the whole show, the Roman Empire. And Rome brought both incredible opportunities and some absolutely deadly threats.
The empire created what's called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For the very first time, the entire Mediterranean world was basically under one government. This meant amazing roads, sea lanes that were clear of pirates, and a general sense of stability. All of a sudden, an idea that started in a tiny province like Judea could travel all the way to Rome, or Egypt, or Spain, with a speed and safety that was just unthinkable before.
Rome's strategy for keeping this huge empire together was pretty simple, but it was really effective. First, they unified it physically. They built the hardware, all those roads and cities. They called it civilization. And second, they tried to unify it ideologically. They wanted everyone to share a kind of common religious software.
The main tool they used for this religious unity was something called syncretism. This is basically just blending together different gods and religious practices. The Roman attitude was more or less, hey, your God and my God, they're probably the same God, just with different names. It's all good. This created this super flexible religious marketplace, but it was a direct threat to any faith, like Judaism or Christianity, that insisted on one exclusive God.
And this is where things got really dangerous. The ultimate test of your loyalty to the empire wasn't a pledge of allegiance, it was a religious act. You had to burn a pinch of incense in front of a statue of the emperor. To a Roman, this was no big deal, just a sign of civic duty, like paying your taxes. But to a Christian, it was idolatry.
And refusing to do it wasn't just seen as being unpatriotic, it was seen as treason. So we have the spiritual hope from the Jewish world and the physical roads from the Roman world. Our third and final ingredient is the intellectual software that was running on that Roman hardware, the Greek mindset. This gave people the very language they needed to talk about a whole new worldview.
Centuries before Rome, Alexander the Great had spread Hellenism or Greek culture all across the known world. And the single most important result of this was a universal language. You could be in a marketplace in Egypt or a government office in what's now France, and educated people could all communicate in Greek. This was huge. It meant complex theological ideas could be shared and debated across massive cultural divides.
And Christians didn't have to invent this approach from scratch. Jewish thinkers, like this guy Philo of Alexandria, had already been working for generations to connect Hebrew scripture with Greek philosophy. They were making the case that, hey, maybe Plato's search for truth and what the prophets said were ultimately pointing to the same thing. This gave the early Christians an absolutely incredible toolkit. Platonism, for example, offered concepts that were super helpful. The idea of one single, perfect God, the concept of an immortal soul, the belief in a higher, unseen reality of truth that's more real than our physical world. These ideas gave Christians a philosophical vocabulary to explain their faith to a skeptical, educated audience that otherwise would have just dismissed them.
Stoicism was another really powerful ally. Its focus on a strict moral code, on virtues like courage and self-control, just resonated so deeply with Christian teachings. The Stoic ideal of apatheia, this kind of unshakable calm in the face of pain, was a perfect model for Christians who were facing persecution. And crucially, the Stoic idea of a universal law of reason gave Christians a framework to argue that their message wasn't just for one group of people, but for all of humanity. So here's the bottom line for this part. Greek philosophy provided an intellectual bridge. It let Christians frame their message in a way the Greco-Roman world could actually understand and respect. It helped them fight back against the common charge that this new faith was just some superstition for ignorant people. So let's put it all together. You've got the spiritual hunger of the Jewish world, the physical roads of the Roman world, and the intellectual language of the Greek world. These three massive forces all came together to create this world of profound contradiction, a world that was uniquely prepared for a new faith to both explode in popularity and to be fiercely, fiercely challenged.
And you can see this paradox so clearly here. Each of our three ingredients was a total double-edged sword. The Jewish world offered a network of communities and a Greek Bible, but it also brought intense persecution from some groups. The Roman world gave them safe roads to travel on, but it also demanded emperor worship, which could be a death sentence. And the Greek world provided a common language, but there was always the danger that its philosophies could end up twisting or watering down the core message. This really was the perfect storm. It was a singular moment in history where all the pieces were in place for a message to spread like wildfire across the known world. But at the same time, every single step of that journey was loaded with danger. It was a world of incredible potential and, at the same time, immense peril.
The historian Justo González put it perfectly. He said the very same forces that opened up the highways for the new faith were the exact same ones that threw up the most dangerous roadblocks. Opportunity and opposition were just two sides of the very same coin.
And all of this leaves us with one final thought to chew on. When you look at a moment like this perfect storm where so many different things come together to change the world forever, it really makes you wonder, how much of history is just random chance, and how much of it, in one way or another, is preparation?